In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, God is one. Amen. Well, the last few days I've been able to see probably as far as Derby. I look out through this window over here. And until a couple of minutes ago, I'd have been hard pushed to see as far as the fence, which is about 5 meters away. There goes the cuckoo clock. So it's probably, it is time to start. So the weather has been a complete change. It's been pouring with rain, very welcome rain, I might say. Wet, very cold, but actually this will encourage the grass to grow that the ponies eat. And if the ponies don't have any grass to eat, we then have to shell out to buy haylage for them. And as I don't want them to go and feed in the woodland around here, because they do a huge amount of damage to the woodland. And their main task is to paddle around in the marsh, which encourages different sorts of plants to grow in the marsh. And then those different sorts of plants then encourage different types of insects, and so it goes on. And we are particularly interested in the pearl-bordered fritillary, for which I get paid. And this year, I think we've had, the official guy has found 4 of them. So that doesn't sound very good, but apparently that's not bad. In the woodland, which used to be marsh as well, and now had plants planted on it, not always the right ones, but when they were wandering around there, I had this feeling the best thing to do if you want to make woodland is do nothing. And the woodland then plants itself from the local trees. Well, 25 years of these trees growing here, they haven't grown terribly well in that time. But by leaving it and by taking out strategic trees from time to time, then you can begin to see that the woodland is actually regenerating itself from the more mature trees. Well, there we go. I see people have arrived all over there. Look at this. Anthony, yes, you're just over the way, so yes, wet and chilly. And Vicky, good morning. And Dijon, food for the grass and plants while it's rain. It's lovely rain, really. It's saving me a lot of effort and time watering the plants, so it'd be good for them. And there's something about rain, it sort of soaks into the earth much more deeply, probably because it's landing one drop at a time in an area rather than pouring down all in one go. Good morning, Phoebe. Somebody called Mortis Bithort. Is that a real name? Is that your name? Darcy, good morning anyway. Good morning, Darcy. Good morning, Alan. No rain yet. Well, hopefully it'll come. Jovan, your prayers for us also. Nicoletta, oh, it's nice to see that you're here. Usually you watch later on. God bless you. And Tracy, who sent us an entire ecosystem of plants and animals. Lorelei, good morning to you also. God bless you. Today, we're going to be, good morning, Natalia. We're going to be looking at just Mark chapter 2, verse 18, and see how we get on from there. There's quite a lot in this little... I didn't think it could be your real name. I think that's an extraordinary and wonderful name if it was. We're going to be looking at verse 18 of chapter 2 in a little bit of depth, and we'll see how we get on with that. We might even go on to verse 19. We'll have a look. Anyway, I'll read the whole paragraph because I'll read rather the first half of the paragraph because without that, it doesn't really make any sense. So the Lord has been eating with tax collectors and sinners. And it obviously occurred to Mark there's a bit more eating that he could talk about. So he continues to talk about it. So eating with bad people. 18. The disciples of John and of the Pharisees were fasting. Then they came and said to him, why do the disciples of John and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast? And Jesus said to them, can the friends of the bridegroom fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. But the days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast in those days. Now that's interesting. At that time, the Pharisees and the disciples of John and other people also would fast. There was only one day of the entire year when everybody fasted, and when this would have been pretty obvious, but this is probably not that day. And that day would have been the Day of Atonement, the Yom Kippur. But then everybody would have been fasting, and not just the disciples of John and the Pharisees. Now, the Pharisees themselves were an interesting group of people. There weren't actually all that large number of them, about 6,000 of them in the whole of the Jewish diaspora and in Jerusalem and the area around about. So not a vast number, but they were very powerful and very influential group of people and tended to be fairly wealthy. And because they were wealthy, they could study the scriptures. They had time to study the scriptures. They didn't have to go off and do all sorts of other things. Although St. Paul, who was a Pharisee, was also a tent maker. But it gave them opportunity to read and to study and be educated in the scriptures. And so they were highly educated in the law and in the scriptures. And they really knew what they were up to. They had a very good understanding of their faith from that point of view. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they knew God. It's quite clear that quite a number of them did, because you come across them in all sorts of ways, turning towards Christ, and therefore they knew about God. But the Pharisees and the disciples of John tended to fast at least 2 days a week. And those days were Monday and Thursday. The rabbis at that time described fasting as a sort of sacrifice. Just like you offered blood and fat on the altar in Jerusalem, they said this was a way of offering your own blood and your own fat on the altar as well by living ascetically. And there was a whole ascetical tradition in Judaism at that stage, exemplified, I suppose, by John, who was ascetic, living out in the desert, eating honey and locusts. We discussed that one already. But also people like the Essenes, they also lived that sort of monastic, ascetical life too. But there were quite a number of other times when somebody might wish to fast. There's only one day in the entire year when everybody had to, and that was the Day of Atonement. But you could fast as a sign of mourning or threatened danger. Somebody rather who was a prophet might fast before receiving a prophecy. Some individual people would fast for their own reasons, for their own intentions. But you also would have the whole community might also fast. So, for example, if the rabbis or the priests decided that God was showing the whole nation displeasure, then the whole nation might themselves fast. You have an example of that, not amongst the Jews, but in the book of Jonah. They'd also fast in times of pestilence or drought. So to fast in order to, as a sort of prayer, and before important political events as well, like going to war, they would also fast then as well. Altogether, there were about up to about 30 different days on which one might fast. Except for the Day of Atonement, where you fasted from evening until evening, the Jewish fast was from first light, so when it first started getting light, until you saw the first stars in the sky. A little bit like in modern Islam, they did something fairly similar. So that was the sort of background of that fasting. It's an interesting way of looking at it. Now, they come therefore to Jesus and they say, we're fasting. Now the question is, why are they fasting? They're fasting as a way of dealing with their own passions and offering sacrifices to God. They're saying, but you're not fasting. And the Lord gives the answer about the bridegroom. But also what they're really saying is, are you so good that you don't need to fast? You don't need to do Yom Kippur. You don't need to fast. You don't need to offer your blood and your fat on the altar. You don't need to cure your passions. And the answer to that question is, of course, no, he doesn't. He doesn't need to do that. He doesn't need to, because he is God. And neither do his disciples, neither do those people who are following after him, because actually he's going to offer his entire self for them as God. And so you've got this other little thread going through this little passage here. He then talks about being the bridegroom, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. But that is the first important thing to notice there, that they come to him saying, effectively, you show off, you're pretending to be perfect. And he's saying, actually, I am perfect. Okay? Right, have a beautiful day. Declan, good morning. Tony from Ireland, good morning. Tony, if you are here, the weather is almost exactly like it was on the day that Charlie died just over a year ago when you were here. You'd recognize it. It's raining steadily, there's thick mist. I can remember keeping on telling you that over there, Tony, there's a view. Day after day after day would go past, and poor Tony didn't get to see the view. You might have done on 1 or 2 days. It poured with rain when Tony came, to the point that I was worried that the hut that he was staying in, which is over the top of the stream, might itself wash away. Anyway, yesterday when I went down there was the tiniest little dribble you've ever seen in your entire life going down the stream. Good morning, Margaret. Drizzle in Chichester. Well, there you go. So, Alan, rain should be heading towards you. It's obviously in a band between us and Chichester at the moment. Tracy, warm then? Oh, 90 degrees. That's quite warm. More than warm enough, I think. So pray for each other. Remember to pray for those people who've been asked to pray for, and particularly those are Rajiv, Karen, Bruce, Tracy, and Marina. Keep them in your prayers. Keep on praying for them. Try and remind yourself to pray for them several times during the day. Today is a fast day, and we'll talk a bit more about fasting tomorrow, but in context of fasting when the bridegroom has been taken away from us. Okay, your prayers, God bless you. Tracy has sent yet more animals for our place there. Also Veronica Elisabetta, yes, we'll pray for her. Somebody's obviously sent us an email today asking us to pray for this person. Thank you very much indeed, Brother Daniel. Yes, it is damp. It is also warm. God bless you.